So with that said, I'd like to introduce I'm going to introduce Dima Belyayeva, and she's part of the InsurTech Hartford team, and she's going to introduce our speakers and be the MC for the first half of the event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stacey. So we have really great speakers tonight. The keynote speeches are going to be delivered by our Novarica partners. They are our gold sponsors for tonight. So we have two excellent speakers, Keith Raymond and Chris Everly. They are both vice presidents at Novarica. They are vice presidents for research and consulting. Keith has over 30 years of experience in technology leadership, and he also has over 25 years of experience in IT-related financial services and specifically in operations management. With regards to Chris, he has a great experience, really broad experience in helping organizations to transform, primarily in the IT area, and he has a tremendous experience in helping to design, implement, and manage IT systems. And we also have a keynote address from Capgemini. This is our steady sponsor who's been sponsoring us for the past year or so. So today we will hear from Shiva Balasubramanian. He is the Capgemini Vice President. He is the one who is part of the Capgemini InsurTech group, and he's focusing primarily on helping to create partnerships with accelerators, with incubators, develop relationships with startups and entrepreneurs. So he has a deep expertise in technology. He has a background in electronics and engineering, and he's speaker on various forums and formats. So I welcome our speakers. Please.
Got it. Good. Hello, everybody. How are you? Keith Raymond here. Chris Everly. We have one mic, so we'll be tossing the baton as we go. Now, I did talk to Stacey earlier. He said 15 minutes at most, or you get the hook, so I'll make it as impactful as possible in the short period of time that we have. So, but thank you for all coming. Can everybody hear me back there? Need to be closer? Is that it? Okay. Thank you very much. So Chris and I work for a company called Novarica. I don't know if any of you have heard of us, but we're based out of Boston, and we are a trusted advisor, technology research and consulting firm for insurance in North America. And we specialize in property casualty and life and annuity. We have about 120 or so carrier clients as part of our ecosystem. Our agenda for tonight, customer experience is the key, so I'm not going to waste too much time on the agenda. All right, customer experience. And one thing before going to the customer experience that's been really interesting from a driving perspective. So we're going to chat about not only the InsurTech side, but also the carrier side as well, because there's a big intersection between the two, right? So what's really, really interesting is I think Chris and I have probably been in anywhere from 50 to 60 carriers over the last 2 years. We help carriers develop digital strategies, one of the things that we do. And digital strategies are generally driven by the customer experience for the most part. But what we're seeing that's very interesting, from a carrier perspective is the fact that they're all talking about the customer experience. Everybody is being driven by the customer experience. So they're not talking about. It's interesting from the standpoint of I've been in the insurance industry for 30 years, right? Healthcare, property casualty, and life and annuity. It's interesting from the standpoint of they're not talking about the product. They're talking about the experience and how the experience is starting to drive how they think about product. So that's very, very interesting. And I think a lot of that is being driven by InsurTech and the process and progress that InsurTech has made in the industry over a very, very short period of time. How many of you actually went to InsurTech Connect this year? Small hands up. I was there as well. So to give you an example of the momentum this is getting, InsurTech Connect started 3 years ago. 3 years ago, there were 1,500 people at the event. This year, there were 6,500 people at the event. I actually had breakfast in a stadium. I've never done that before, right? But what was really interesting about it too, when InsurTech folks the folks in this ecosystem are looking for funding, right? PE, VCs, they're all there. And I actually spoke to someone that I knew from my past insurance days who came up to me with a big smile on his face, who just got series funding for an effort they were kicking off. So big time event, a lot of momentum around it. Interestingly enough, that it's gained more momentum and traction than I think I've ever seen in insurance in my 3 decades there. Yes, 3 decades. But anyway. So experience is the product now, right? So a lot of people are being driven, a lot of carriers are driving their thought process by the experience and not necessarily the product, right? The buying experience, the customer experience, the claims experience, all of the key touch points that you can have are what's going to differentiate the experience, potentially get you as a client on board with either carrier or a startup, right? And so that's what's everybody is focused on now, is the experience. We're seeing a flip, right? So from the standpoint of product, there's not as many people focused on the product as they used to be in the heyday, as they are focused on the experience as well. So we're really seeing a major push in the last 18 to 24 months, especially on the carrier side, for an experience vision, direct to consumer. Everything that's being pushed from an InsurTech perspective, the carriers are starting to grapple with and really focus on. And some are doing it very well, and some are really challenged by it. And by the way, feel free to ask any questions as we're going through this. I know we only have 15 minutes, but I'd certainly like to hear from the audience if you have any questions. So what are these guys doing? So, everybody's heard of the guys on the left side of the slide here, right? Lemonade, and Slice, and others. But have you heard about USAA? So USAA is a large carrier that's focused on the experience. I worked with another company, I can't mention the company because it's not, the effort wasn't public, but I worked with a large global company that actually worked with USAA on developing and improving the customer experience. This was like 5 years ago. So USAA has been all over this for a long time. They annually win awards for the customer experience that they provide to their clients, and are generally leaders in the space. So it's not and I say that because it's nothing new. It wasn't InsurTech driven, but there are companies that really do a great job from the experience side looking in, and really let's say the outside looking in, like a lot of the InsurTechs do.
Just to add, in Wall Street Journal on November 1st, there was an article on CLB and how it's changing. They even use it for like support calls and everything. So if tech support will know exactly how much minutes to spend on the person there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So spending time, he was commenting on the fact that even looking at how many minutes you're spending on a customer in operations and all, and trying to understand what does that mean.
So from a product innovation perspective and lessons learned, Novarica, we break this up into InsurTech up into 4 categories. We call it the ABCDs of InsurTech, right? So you have analytics and arm dealers, beneficial bots, creative carriers, and digital distributors. So this is a map of kind of the InsurTech space broken up into those categories. Now, it doesn't include everybody in the space, but literally 2 years ago, this might have had 80 names on it, and now it's probably got over 200. So there's definitely been an explosion of focus in the insurance space. And why? Because it's kind of the last bastion from the standpoint of technology investment, right? So we at Novarica, we actually bring contingents of leaders out to Palo Alto to do a week-long tour of Silicon Valley. And we go to the likes of Google, we go to the likes of Amazon Web Services and others, but we also go into A, B, C, D round funded companies focused on insurance. And we also talk to the accelerators like Plug and Play, and also private equity and VCs as well. So we have a great opportunity to bring people out there and get focused on this. But the key is, from an experience perspective, and the title of the session, most of the InsurTech companies are actually generated based on some kind of, well, I shouldn't say most. Many of the ones that I've spoken to have actually developed a thought or concept based on a negative experience they've had. So they are experience driven, just from the standpoint of starting up and incubating a thought or idea and ultimately getting funding for that. So that's a pretty unique thing in the industry. Chris, I don't know if you have anything else to add on that.
No.
Not to put you on the spot.
Yep, that's fine.
So from a creative carrier perspective, it's the outside looking in. Same as InsurTech, really. It's the experience looking back. You take something like on the earlier slide, a Haven Life, right? Mass Mutual funded that. It's an LLC of Mass Mutual, but it was done without any strings from the enterprise, right? Focus on the experience and develop your ecosystem based on the experience you want to deliver from a standpoint of just insurance acquisition, and that's what they ended up doing. And also, it's interesting too in the InsurTech space that's roughly a 3-year-old company, right? It just bought another 3-year-old company, it bought Quilt, right? From a distribution perspective. So to try and improve the distribution, it's buying another InsurTech company, right? And so that's what we're starting to see now. Now that InsurTechs are actually starting to age a little bit, grow up into adolescence. They're ripe for opportunity. And the one thing also to know from an InsurTech perspective, you hear the word disruption, right? Carriers aren't shaking in their boots about any InsurTech like a Lemonade taking over the world. If they end up getting enough of the pie, somebody will buy it, right? But that's what they want, right? Most of the InsurTechs that are venture backed or private equity backed want to be bought. That's part of the game, right? So that's what we're seeing in this space. There's a lot of opportunity developed from some kind of experience that's being developed out, and they're playing in a niche. And that niche is actually going to fill part of an ecosystem for somebody that is looking for an opportunistic way of filling the gap. Anything on that one? Good. Some creative carriers, I know I mentioned Haven Life already and Quilt, two here, and actually when Haven actually bought Quilt, they actually, Quilt's focus was on renters insurance primarily, and Haven has actually pivoted them away from renters insurance, pushed that back to the actual policy providers that are providing that insurance, and they have a focus on wealth management and annuity growth. Others in this space, Vistal, working with Salmons and Munich on improving the way. So what I'm trying to do here is dissociate the InsurTech space to the carrier space for real world scenarios on how things are getting done and how the ecosystem is growing because of not only private equity and VC investments, but also carrier investments as well, right? Significant. And Munich Re is actually, I know, anybody from Hartford Steam Boiler here? Yeah. Munich has done an unbelievable job at focusing on the InsurTech space and major investments in players there as well, like Meshify from the standpoint of IoT. They actually recently bought another one. I don't know if it's public yet. So really heavy investments on gaining traction to a space where they're looking to dominate.
So the 20-second, because we're down to seconds here. So the 20-second wrap up from my perspective is the wonderful thing here is that with the InsurTechs, the industry's been able to learn a lot. and experiment and see. There's a huge underserved population that at least on the life and annuity, which is the area, and the retirement that I focus on, that is being addressed, and it actually is really exciting. But getting involved and understanding the customer and making that be part of the product is absolutely imperative.
I think we're at a wrap, 5 seconds. Thanks all.